What I teach when I go in to work with a municipality is that if you're empathetic first as the employee, you will get that in return. You may not get that every time, but you will get that in return most of the time.
That's Glenn AKRAmoff, founder and CEO of AKRAmoff LLC. He's a leading expert in rehabilitating municipal government workplaces with over 3 decades of experience. His commitment to building purpose-driven workplaces has made him a sought-after authority in workplace culture, human-centered workplaces, building winning teams, generational opportunities, and local government operations. In this episode, Glenn is going to talk about creating a culture of empathy in municipal workplaces. Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Why don't we start by defining what you mean by municipal workplaces? Why do you make that distinction with other types of workplaces?
Municipal workplace is local government, basically. So it's your local city, county. I don't do a lot of work with state because those get pretty big, but the county, the cities, townships, in the local government service piece. The reason I delineate those is because, first of all, that's where my beginning of my career was. I very much spent my first 25 years of my career in various positions within local government. I also delineate it because it's really where government meets all of us, right? It's in our backyard. That's serving you as a customer and as a citizen. And the kind of what covers that is your water, your sewer, your land use, your streets, all of those sort of things that you would be concerned about on a day-to-day basis that impact your life on a day-to-day basis. The reason that I don't include state and federal is because they generally don't impact you on a day-to-day basis regularly. And I shouldn't leave out police and fire as well.
So you find that municipal workplaces differ from, let's say, the private sector, but also nonprofits, perhaps?
Yeah, I would say nonprofits as well. And what really makes them different is on the private side, you focus on making money and profit and all of that sort of stuff. In municipal government, you have your base amount that you get from your taxes and fees and all of that. So you need to be able to focus on how you use that money. Now you do that in private as well, and I know that based on my work as an entrepreneur, but I would say that what really makes the difference is the focus of the employees. On the private side, you're focused on service so that you can provide a world-class product or service so that they will pay for it and pay a little bit more for it than maybe they would pay someone else to do it. On the private side, it is purpose-driven. Most of the employees that work, and not all, but most of the employees there are there because they want to serve the community in that way. They want to help create community, and that really sets them apart a little bit. You'll find money is not the end-all, be-all. Yes, they want to make a good living and all that, but when it comes down to whether they make money or whether they don't, they would rather serve. And long-standing, that has been the focus, is that when I started and when I was in there, I actually could make more money on the private side than I could in public service. Right. But I chose not to because I really enjoyed serving the community and helping create the community. That is part of what I would call a social contract within the public employees that doesn't always exist in the private side.
So, Glenn, it seems that most of your work focuses heavily on empathy in the workplace. Why does empathy matter so much?
First of all, when you're in municipal government, especially recently with the advent of social media and the hostility that's gone with that, especially towards government workers, being empathetic to the citizens and your clients, as it were, has become more difficult. And that is where you see the conflict and the lack of trust in government. And really, that's what it is. It's a trust relationship between those who serve in a community and those who live in the community. And empathy allows you to provide that service. So as an example, when you as a citizen go to City Hall Say you've been billed incorrectly on your water bill, which is a really common one. So you go there to get it fixed. And when the employee at the front line has that empathy for you and understands, okay, they came here, they took their time of their day to come here and fix this because it's a concern of them, they provide much better service. The other part of that empathy piece is that many people see the government employee as City Hall. They're not humanized. So, in many ways, that means the opposite. They are dehumanized. They're there to get their government salary, and that's all they're there for. Now, I will tell you those do exist, but they're not as common as everybody thinks they are. You need to have the empathy both ways. So what I teach when I go in to work with a municipality is that if you're empathetic first as the employee, you will get that in return. You may not get that every time, but you will get that in return most of the time. And we've had a great deal of success with that philosophy.
So, what comes to mind is some specific fields, and I know we're talking municipal workplaces today, but I can think of other fields, medicine, for example, where there could be an empathy overload, where employees
Yes.
become really, really kind of desensitized to the problems of people. How do you handle that?
That's absolutely right. That can happen in police and fire. That can happen at the front desk. That can happen in pretty much all government agencies and those who serve, especially in the intensity that you're referring to. Part of that is helping people understand why they're there. So one of the things that I teach is alignment of purpose. And what makes that so important is when I started my career, I didn't know what my personal purpose was, so to speak. But once I figured it out, that I knew it was to be in service, then my purpose was aligned with what my employer was supposed to provide. When people get off center and when organizations get off center, especially in the municipal world, it's because they stop serving the community. And the first place it shows is in the empathy for the customer, for the citizen. And I will tell you, it's very difficult when someone's yelling at you because they're upset about something and they're taking it out on you as a government employee, because one of the things the government employees hear every day, almost every day, is I pay your salary. There's truth to that, right? But it also, it's meant to be demeaning in many ways. And the people who are generally saying it are saying that. Well, I pay your salary. What they mean is I get to treat you any way I want. And of course, we know that's not true. But kind of the next step of that is being curious as to why they're upset. Because a lot of times it's not because of you. It's not because even something your organization necessarily is done or is doing. They're having a bad day, and you happen to be the first person they see. And I kind of want to take a little side note here is one of the services that most people don't know about that local government employees provide is for those who are isolated. So maybe the elderly or people who are just moved in, they come to City Hall or the rec center or wherever government employees are on a regular basis just to have a conversation. And the government employees, most of them value those opportunities to just have a conversation with someone and be there for them. So that empathy, right? Understanding that someone is not coming to take your time necessarily. They're coming because they don't have anyone else to talk to. That gets back to that core piece of the empathy of why you're really there.
I think it would also matter to make sure that you have the right employees in place, right? There are some people who are more agile at empathy than others. Some people are just not good at being empathetic. And so it comes down to making the right hires, right, for those employees, municipal employees who are
Oh,
dealing with the public day in and day out.
100%. And one of the things that I find regularly when I go in to an organization that's struggling is there are a lot of employees that are miscast. They're really good at some things, but they're not good at that front facing empathy part, or the opposite. I had one of my favorite examples. She was actually at a maintenance facility. She saw 7 people a day. She was a hostess. When we moved her to City Hall, she thrived because she was empathetic. And people came in every day just to say hi to her. To your point, that's placing somebody in the right role where they can succeed and serve the community.
What are the first steps a municipal leader should take to create a culture of empathy?
Well, the first thing to do is to model it. I think that's the first step. As a government leader, and I was for about 18 of my 25 years, is I modeled empathy with my team. I showed them empathy and I showed it when we had a tough interaction happening. I took the brunt of that. So if we had someone yelling, screaming at the front desk, regardless of what they were screaming about, I would step in and I would get to show empathy in two ways. One, empathy for my employee who was getting yelled at and didn't know necessarily what to do or have any context as to work with, or the ability to make the decision that they were asking for. And the second was I got curious and asked a lot of questions and calmed the person down and let them know that I'm listening and I'm hearing them. And then empathizing with them in their situation and being able to help them get to a solution. I modeled it in two ways. And I think that's what a municipal leader has to do to start with. The second step is similar to that in that when I go into an organization, a lot of times it's in crisis. There's tons of opportunities to show empathy and model it, but the next thing is to get the other leaders that are there to start to model it as well, to help them know that, it's not always about me as the leader. Sometimes it's about my employee who is actually on the front line serving the community. So I've done a lot of work in my career with parks and recreation teams, and I'm working with a couple right now. And they have multiple ways they interact, including the maintenance people who are out taking care of the park and making sure it's safe and clean and looks good. They interact quite a bit with the public. And to your earlier point, they need to have that empathy and that ability to interact in the field at the moment. And for some of them, that's difficult. One of the reasons it's difficult is because their leader tend to push them to get a lot of work done, and rightfully so, but they don't feel like they can take time to empathize and listen and talk with a regular parks user. And so that's an example of something that we do right away is make it okay to do those things and be there for those you're serving.
Can you elaborate a little bit on how empathy at work can impact team collaboration, but also public trust?
Let's start with team collaboration first. I am not a believer in the statement that I don't have to like the people that I work with. I think you do to a certain extent. And it goes to that thing because if you dislike someone, you're not going to empathize with them. You're not going to understand when they call in sick because their kids are sick or, they have a family crisis. Those things are important in the team dynamic because when that happens, you need to be able to empathize and then pick up the slack for them, knowing that in the future, they're going to do the same for you or that might be a possibility. So it is incredibly, it's just vital for a team success to be able to have that and be able to have the understanding. So when you're talking about public trust, I would say the number one thing is that people want to be heard. And when they're heard and you listen, one of my core principles of teaching is that you give the citizen what they need, not what they want. And the only way you find out what they really need versus what they want is you are curious, you ask a lot of questions, and you listen to the answers and follow up, and you get to a point where you repeat back to them what they need, not what they want, not what they've asked for, because again, one of the things that I also talk about is that you're the professional. It's my profession. If I'm a parks maintenance worker, I should know my profession well, better than someone who is using the park. And so in order to give them what they need, I need to be able to ask them questions and listen and get to a point of, okay, I've interpreted that as a professional, that this is what that means. Is this what you need? And they'll correct you if you're wrong. And you just kind of get to that. Once you listen and you deliver what they need once, you've won them over to a certain extent. And then the next time they'll come to you and they'll test you. And then once you deliver regularly on your promise, then the trust starts to build. I talk a lot about building trust one person at a time, but it doesn't always happen that way, right? If someone has a great experience with a municipal government, they share that just like they do a negative one. And if they share that, so say they're interacting with me, I talk with them, I get them what they need, and I deliver on that promise, they will tell people, hey, I went to Glenn and he got me what I needed. You should go see Glenn. And that's how public trust. And now not only I built individual trust with a couple of people and kind of got that interaction, but I now have been humanized. I'm their person at the municipal government, and then they can come to me. And so to continue that trust, I need to make sure if I'm not the right person for them to go to, that not only have they taken possession of me, but I take possession of them. And I say, all right, I can't answer that question. I'm not in that line of business, but I will get you to this person. And if you don't get what you need, come back to me and I'll make sure you do. And that's how the trust is continually built.
What advice do you have for HR professionals who want to create a culture of empathy, but they don't really know where to even start?
It is such a great opportunity because, especially internally, the best HR teams I've worked with in the past, and a lot of times they're the ones who call me first. They listen, they hear what's going on, they have a good sense of what is happening in the organization. They know where the failures are, they know where the challenges are, and they know where the successes are. The story, what I just talked about building the trust, it becomes that way. Take possession of the people that you're working with and become their go-to person for HR. And they will spread the word. Glenn's my HR person. You can go to Glenn and he will help you navigate the processes. And what makes HR to me so hard is because a lot of times you're dealing with some sort of crisis, whether it's policy, whether it's someone's gotten hurt at work, or, there's just so many of them where people are struggling and they don't know how to navigate that process. And for the HR professional, you're the one who knows that you're the one who's going to help them work their way through that process. And if you deliver on the promise that is made as part of your role in the organization, you will build the trust with the organization. And ultimately, that'll be one of the better organizations there are.
It was fantastic having you on the show, Glenn. Thank you for your valuable insights.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
Support for this show comes from Western Carolina University, a campus of the University of North Carolina system, with the technical assistance of Kelly Minnis.